I work with a lot of different mediums. I do figurative work, line drawing, black and white, sculpture, paper mache. I work with a lot of color. And I think there's many reasons that I do it. Some of it's political, a lot of it is personal, and a lot of it is just sort of getting rid of some of the voices in my head and conversing in a visual way, just through the art. Well, I'm not a very disciplined person, so usually I sort of work on not really a theme, but something will sort of need to be looked into, or something will trigger images, and then usually I really walk around with them, a lot of them in my head for a long time. And then a lot, especially with the sculpture, I construct it, deconstruct it, just to make sure that when I do start, it is going to sort of work. So you kind of problem solve constructing it. And then a lot of times with the paintings or, the other work, it's fairly immediate, even though I do have an idea of when I want to go. But it's sort of like doing a flower arrangement. You put this in and then I put that in, and you balance the color, balance the lines, and just sort of let whatever comes out. I would say that it has to start with the subject. So once I find something that I really am, really do want to sort of concentrate on, then, it takes time to walk through what images I would use, how I want to sort of, put it visually on paper or through the sculptures. And then after the excitement too is getting to the work as well. But when you're doing the work, then again, there's always that frustration of, just losing the momentum or it just not working out. So you really have to step back. So both of them, I think, really. Well, I think I've always built or made stuff, because when my background is we were able to run forever. So we're always building forts. We're always making things, just getting into trouble here and there, but it was always sort of building things and making things and bringing things home to work with. And also drawing, just being alone, drawing. I get whatever paper I could find in the, backs of magazines or, different things. I'd save all the paper and then do a lot of drawing. I think drawing is where it all started. I really like to just be alone and draw. I think I just decided at a point that I'd invested in it over the years. I hadn't really gone to school, but I'd taken workshops, and I was a single mom, and I just decided that's probably what I should do. And I think I'd always been doing it, so eventually it just sort of became more important to call myself an artist. The impact that the landscape, especially Sudbury landscape, has had is just, it's so unique, it's so different, huge, and yet it's being so devastated over time. So it's that sort of the politic behind the landscape and just the hugeness of it, the barrenness and the destruction, but the regrowth is really neat. And the positive and the negative of the snow and the black rock. I think that's inspiring. And that landscape nature will just force itself to live. It will live on, always come back. Well, a garden, yeah, I do like gardening. I'm not a gardener, but I like to, I just love the color. I love the texture. I love the, everything changing from one day to the next. Getting out early in the morning and see what's changed and morphed and, just sort of emerged. It's just great. I love the color, all the different shapes, and I just let it grow wild. The sooner it goes wild, the better I feel. I don't like anything too tight. Well, these they just came from. We had a big roll of brown paper, and it's always just super to work big. And I love line work, and to just sort of allow the mind to just start creating, like don't go for the center, draw your line a little bit to one side, and then just allow whatever came to my head to go onto the paper, and then go back and forth until, work with them, and then all of a sudden have to stop, and then, because you're sort of losing what it is that you're trying to do. And then just go back and forth. And a lot of the things that show up, like the lobsters, the flowers, the apples, are things that have followed me, symbols that have followed me from the beginning of when I started to work. Well, I probably don't really want to talk about it because it certainly ages me, but when I was young, I always wanted to go to art school. So I went for an interview with Arthur Lismer at the Beaux-Arts in Montreal. And he went through my work, and I remember, but I could be exaggerating, that he thought it was brilliant and that I should go to school. And then he drew this little cat on the side of one of my papers, which annoyed me. And I thought it was horrible. Probably would have been worth a fortune. I think he was encouraging, and I think anytime you can have somebody that is an artist and has been in the arts for a long time to encourage you and to take time to look at your work, I think that's huge, because it's not the easiest choice to do, and I think actually in the end it's just about persevering and doing the work yourself, because I think as much as you can get supported and have somebody appreciate your work, the only way you can be an artist is to do the work and to just persevere, because you'll always have to do other jobs. The hands show up. I don't know really. I guess they do look odd because they're bigger, right? And part of it I always think is because my mother had these really big hands, but she also had this strange these two strange deformed thumbs. So she would walk around, so you're always aware of her hands, even though, it's not like she could have cared less. But that was the first thing we checked on our children when they were born, is to see whether they got my mom's thumbs. But I work with my hands, other women work with their hands. It's certainly a way of communicating that it's just there with anybody. And I also think they create attention. So I don't know why they end up being that big, because my mother's hands weren't that huge, but they just emerged that way. But one person came to my studio one time, and she says that there is something wrong with my brain if I make those large hands. I never did find out what it was, but I thought that was curious. Well, I just being in Venice was brilliant. Just the architecture and just being surrounded literally by art. But there was one piece, well, there was a number of pieces, but there's one this really lifestyle ceramic, all bright colors, that was done such a long time ago, and just figuring out how it was fired, how it was put together. It was very contemporary, mad looking, but absolutely brilliant. And it was those turning a corner and seeing work like that, and Chagall, and up close to really beautiful work. And then just looking up and seeing the intensity and the beautiful ceilings and the chandelier, and just being surrounded by naked marble people. That was wonderful. Well, the crows, I think everybody's so aware of crows depending on where you live, and they've always seemed to travel, and they're always there, and I think they're so symbolic throughout life. But where I lived before, I guess they've always seemed to congregate around. But by the water tower in Sudbury, there are families of them that live there, and you'd watch them, and they go through their whole year from raising their family, teaching them language and stuff. But what I've also done is sort of use them to come back as carrion to sort of put humans in their place, because we are so quick to kill anything that moves. And as somebody said the other day, the threat of nature. And so a lot of them I put back to give them more power. Well, I think I can only speak personally about the role of an artist, any time today. Not any time today, but throughout time. I think it's a very personal thing. I do think, though, that I think we're sort of people that are involved with society, because a lot of what inspires you is what surrounds you. And I certainly get, things that provoke me to sort of need to create images or react to it through some form of medium. But, you know, I've been somebody that sort of is curious, and part of that curiosity involves my environment, but also what goes on around me as far as my friends, my family, people that I know, and the different institutions that represent us as well, that sometimes don't do that good a job. Well, I think certainly the age that I am, I'm an old feminist, so a lot of the things that I was involved with years ago had a lot to do with that, you know, positioning myself and playing through in some of those issues that still continue today. So that has always been a big part of what I do, I think, and, you know, in a pretty big way. But, you know, I'm quite political. I'm very curious about, you know, how our governments run and the whole global issues that are going on, environment and just the social injustices and stuff. So there's not too many times you can have a bunch of people sitting around the table, which I always have, and not hear and not want to get involved with some of the things that are going on that affect, you know, your community, really. Somebody said the other day, oh my God, is this your swan song? So if I look at other artists that are out there, they're well into their, you know, 80s, 90s. And there's an awful lot of things that really annoy me still. So I hope I can, you know, keep doing my work, but simplify it and make it a bit more strident and more, I don't know, sort of get the feeling I should do it faster. Monkey, I had a monkey. I had a monkey. Yeah. We unfortunately, we ended up walking by this pet store that was under construction, and there was a monkey in a cage in filth, and it had just ripped the head off of a budgie. So the owner desperately wanted to get rid of it. So he pretty much gave it to us along with a bag of food and, you know, other stuff to keep a monkey happy, aside from budgies. We ended up with it, and then it was just a hysterical nightmare from that moment on. So it would escape in Montreal and then would come back, and anyway, we had ended up in the Quebec Zoo with friends